I'm really excited that we're here together again, fellow Canmore participants. And I'm hoping that everyone else that has not yet participated in a Alpine Ambassador Program will get a lot out of it and will consider applying for either the rock or ice programs for this year or next. I will probably never stop talking about how amazing this was and how transformative this program was for me. And I'll share a little bit more at the end why that was so meaningful at this point in time for me. But we just wanted to kind of walk you through what our experience has been this year and how fortunate we feel for having had this opportunity. So I'm going to start by sharing my PowerPoint, which I want to clarify that I put this together with the help of Chris, but all the photos are a collection of photos that we have all taken during the trip. And this rad that is the cover. I'm pretty sure, Ian, did you take this one? Ian, you're muted. So everybody that is was in Canmore, please unmute yourself, because I'll ask you things all along, and I hope.
Yeah, so I don't think I took that one.
Really? Okay. Well, this is a totally awesome photo, and we can now figure out who took it, right?
It's the cooler is, or the photo is way cooler than the actual climbing that was happening in that photo, I must say. There's a lot more flailing than it looks like.
Well, Chris is in the foreground and Radhika is in red. And Radhika and Ian, you can always tell who they are because they're wearing red or orange or super bright colors all the time. This was actually the last day, and we'll talk about it at some point, but it was the day where everybody got a chance to try some mix, which was very much the very first time for me. So that was super cool. Okay. Our plan tonight is to talk a little bit about the Alpine Ambassador Program and introduce the participants of the Canmore Ice Ambassador this year. Talk a little bit about the format of this year program, which was a little different from previous years. Amazing work of organization by Steve Swenson, who I really still hoping he's going to join us tonight. He was registered. And also Becca Polgase and also Kyle Wakey, who also I was hoping he would come. We had incredible mentors. Steve Swenson and Jim Azinga are world-class alpinists, and we'll talk a little bit about their accomplishments later, but it was unbelievable to have them as mentors and kind of like coaches on almost one-on-one. I mean, we had some incredible experiences with them. And we also had two fantastic guides from Canmore. Actually, they're based in Banff. Chris and Ben from Rocky's Ice Alpine Specialist. And I couldn't recommend their organization more. And we'll talk about also what we learned from them. And then we're going to go over sort of like a day by day, showing you slides and some details about the climbs that we did. And at that point, we're all going to sort of jump in and say a few things as we see fit that, you know, paint a picture a little bit about the type of climbing that we did. And then at the end, we're going to share some takeaways that some of us felt were important to share and maybe useful for others in the future, and talk a little bit about potential next steps that some of you that have not done the program, or even people that have done the program and maybe they've done ice and not rock or vice versa, want to consider potentially applying for future programs. So I think this is your turn, Chris. Talk a little bit about the program in general.
Yeah, so basically, well, the Alpine Ambassador Program, there's a lot of additional information for the program on the Mountaineers website. So if you're really interested in looking into it, and I would encourage you to do so, you should go to the Mountaineers website and find their page on the Alpine Ambassador Program, and it'll run through a lot of the more minute details. But in summary, it was started in 2017, largely in part, or largely due to the vision of Steve Swenson. And it was kind of designed as an add-on to a lot of the programs that the Mountaineers already offers in order to target, you know, the more committed volunteers that are very regular in volunteering for the Mountaineers, so that, you know, in part to kind of give back to those volunteers who give a lot of their time to allow them to also push their own climbing and leading abilities. So yeah, it's a really unique opportunity for folks who are very involved in the Mountaineers, and it allows them to acquire higher technical levels of training, and then use that additional info that they learn on these trips to be more effective volunteers for the Mountaineers in their local branches. So yeah, the program, it's an investment in the people who volunteer a bunch with the Mountaineers, and yeah, I would definitely highly encourage you to check it out. And it's not only these trips that are super unique and fun, it's also the community that's formed as a result of these trips, and the ability to kind of lean on some of these other folks who are of a higher technical skill as a result of these trips within the Mountaineers as well. So it's a super cool program, and yeah, highly encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, so the program was started in 2017, and then was held, we started with the Ice Ambassador Program that was held in Canmore either January or February every year except 2021 from 2018 on. Generally speaking, the lodging for Canmore takes place at the Alpine Club of Canada. But this year, due to COVID, the Alpine Club of Canada basically did not want mixed groups. That was their rules and regulations at that time. And so we were pretty lucky to have our own rooms in very fancy Airbnbs. And that was kind of like a special treatment that probably is not going to happen again, but definitely made for extra comfort and extra, and eliminate some of the stress that the whole going to Canada during COVID really produced for us. And everybody had to test, and we also were selected to test at the border. There was a lot of complications, but once we were there, we had a wonderful time, and it was really cool to have this added comfort. There's also Rock Ambassador Gateway trips that have been held in Squamish in July since 2018. Unfortunately, 2020 and 2021 were canceled because of COVID, but the Squamish program is back on, and applications are currently live and accepted. I'll have a link at the end to the page where you can apply, and we'll talk a little bit more about what the requirements are, and encourage some of you hopefully to apply. In addition to the gateway trips, which is basically what we did, there is also Alpine Ambassador hosted trips. So basically the Alpine Ambassadors become leaders that can lead and sponsor trips to various locations where climbers that are not quite ready for the type of climbing that Canmore or Squamish require can build their skills. So let's say that you only done Alpine Ice module in intermediate, maybe not even that yet. You can learn basic water ice on top rope going to either Bozeman or Ouray. And those have been offered a couple of times. Ouray was canceled this year, but there was a previous Ouray trip, there was a previous Bozeman trip, and I actually plan to offer one next year if everything goes well. And so what happens in the ambassador hosted trips, the club actually pitches in with usually lodging in Airbnbs, and then you pay for your own expenses to get there. And you have the expertise of some of the Alpine ambassadors. You don't get usually local guides in that case, but skilled volunteers will be the ones that you're going to be learning from. And I understand that Steve actually offered one of these in City of Rocks last September. I'm not sure how that went, but that's also an opportunity for those folks that are interested on the rock side. Okay, so this is us. This is the participants of this year. You can see us all on the last day, and there were originally going to be, I think there were originally going to be 12, and then it went down to 10, and various COVID-related issues. It happened, only 6 of us made it over there. But as I mentioned, there were a lot of pluses in having such a small group, and we'll see how that really ended up being such a great value for us. But there were two of us from Seattle, Chris and I, two from Bellingham, Alex and Andy, and then Rodika and Ian from Everett. And then you can see Chris is one of our guides, and Ben, and then Steve Swenson. That day, unfortunately, Jim Ilzinga couldn't make it, so he's not portrayed in this photo, but that was our sort of happy last day celebration photo. And then what I'm going to do now is just super briefly have each of us introduce ourselves, just to say a few things about where we come from, our branches, and what we do at the branches. So I'll start. I'm Emma Agosta. If you don't know me, I'm a climb leader. I've been in the Mountaineers since 2015, and I have done basic and intermediate. I also lead scrambling and biking and hiking and backpacking, and most recently bike packing. So I kind of have branched out to a lot of different activities, and this trip actually sort of refocused me on climbing, and I'm very grateful and excited about that. Chris?
Hey everyone, my name's Chris Sommer. I started with the Mountaineers in 2019, the end of 2019, when I moved to Seattle. And yeah, most of what I've helped out with has been the rock rescue courses. And then I've also assisted on the Alpine ice modules as well, when needed. Unfortunately, I kind of started out volunteering with the Mountaineers, and then COVID hit pretty soon after that, and it kind of disrupted a lot of that. So in recent months, I've been getting more back into kind of the volunteering regimen again. So yeah, really looking forward to doing more with the Seattle branch. And yeah, I felt very fortunate to have been given the opportunity to attend this trip.
All right, so here we have Alex and Andy, and if you guys are willing to say a few things about yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm Alex Brennan. I started with the Mountaineers, I think back in 2012 when I took the basic course, and I've taken the intermediate course. Climb leader, I think I've led the crevasse rescue trip for quite a few years. Help out the intermediate course, teach some rock rescue and crevasse rescue. And that's my summary.
All right. Oh, I'm Andy Burgett, and I took the basic course in 2015, and ever since then I've been helping out with the Bellingham basic course every year. Go with Alex to crevasse rescue trips, and I'm leading the introduction of rock climbing trip for our basic students. And lately I've been trying to volunteer more with the intermediate climbing course.
All right, our dynamic duo, Rodika and Ian.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm Rodika Manole. I've been with Mountaineers since 2010. I took the basic course, scramble course, intermediate course, scramble leader, climb leader, instructing both basic and all intermediate courses. I ran self-rescue course for Everett for about 4 years, and currently I'm the intermediate climbing chair for Everett branch.
Ian, how can you follow that?
Well, I don't really have a whole lot to add to that.
Beat that.
We do together. I'm doing my Praveen pose here. Rodika loves that one.
Well, these two are amazing.
I can see why.
They do the coolest climbs, the hardest climbs, the most, I was reading about Jim being the kind of person, Jim Ilzinga being the kind of climber that always finds the hardest route in the most difficult conditions. I think Rodika and Ian do the same exact thing.
Totally different scale.
It's a different scale for me, yes, one that I cannot.
No, our scale with Jim's scale. At what level
it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for introducing yourselves, and that's really all we had. We were supposed to have people from Kitsap and Tacoma, and those are the ones that for various reasons couldn't make it. So that was us. it turned out to be fantastic in terms of learning and in terms of the one-on-one time and ratio that we had with our mentors and guides. And there were a few other perks. I mentioned the accommodation, but we'll see also we had this opportunity to do this incredible climbing day in the Ghost, which probably would have never done if we had a big group. So okay, well, I don't think either of them are here, and I'm really sad about that, but I want to make sure that people are here realize how amazing is this opportunity just to work with mentors of this caliber. So Steve Swenson and Jim Elzinga are both world-class alpinists, world famous. I mean, they're really kind of legends. And whatever little that we're going to say about them doesn't really give them justice in terms of what they have accomplished in their climbing careers. I'm just going to say a few words about Steve in case you don't know Steve. Steve Swenson is a world-class alpinist. He's been climbing for nearly half a century all over the world. He's very well known for having done big mountain climbing expedition in the Karakoram. He's done at least 15 of them. And he wrote about them in this book that I have here. If you've not seen it or read it yet, I strongly recommend it, Karakoram, Climbing to the Kashmir Conflict. I am reading it right now, and I am learning so much about the geopolitics of the area and also how incredible these adventures that Steve had in the Himalayas. So fantastic book. Of course, the Mountaineers published it. He also served as president of the American Alpine Club from 2009 till 2012. And he and his team were awarded the prestigious PLA d'Or award for a successful ascent of Caesar Kangri II in 2012. I had never even heard about this mountain, but apparently this was the second highest unclimbed mountain in the world at the time that they climbed it. So apparently somebody else has climbed it since. But so pretty huge feat for which they earned this incredible award. And also Steve, as I mentioned, is a very well-known author. Other than his memoir, he also has contributed to Climbing, Rock and Ice, The Alpinist, and American Alpine Journal. And I don't know where he's right now. He was supposed to be here tonight, Steve, if you hear this later. But he spends his time partly in Canmore and partly in Seattle. He has homes in both places, and he's just climbing. Radhika, you had something you wanted to say? Yeah?
I just want to add
Yes.
that he actually won a second PLA d'Or for 2019 Linksar, first ascent of Linksar.
Wow.
Yep.
Did not find that. Thank you for adding that.
Yep.
That's awesome. Then I may have just gotten them mixed up. But 2019.
No, both. Yeah, he has two. Yep.
See, I knew I was not going to give him any justice. Okay, hopefully Chris will do a better job with Jim Elzinga.
There's a funny anecdote about that Chris and I had, which is that we were climbing with Steve and Jim, and people stopped to take pictures with us. They were like, "Oh my God, is that Jim Elzinga?" And then Jim was like, "Oh, that's Steve Swenson." And the guys were like, "Oh my God!" And they're like, "Can we get selfies with you guys?"
Yeah, and I did not really have a good gauge of who they were, honestly, in terms of the climbing community prior to the trip. So it was kind of at that moment that I was like, wow, feel pretty lucky to have been like climbing with these guys all week. And,
I felt the same way. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Pretty cool. So yeah, Jim, to follow up on these intros. So Jim, he is also very world-class alpinist. He's got a lot of first ascents. He is Canadian and kind of cut his teeth in the Rockies. Has a lot of first ascents in the Canadian Rockies. A lot of mixed and ice routes. There's probably too many to name right now, but some notable ones are Mount Cromwell, Mount Alberta, and quite a few other ones. But he's also done a lot in the Himalaya as well. Some first ascents on, I think it's Brahmasar. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. Brahmasar 2, Nuptse's Southeast Pillar, and his most famous climb probably is leading an expedition to climb a new route on Everest. And at the same time, he involved Sharon Wood, who is the first North American woman to reach the summit. So he was part of that expedition. So pretty cool stuff. And in 2007, he received an award of recognition from the Sir Edmund Hillary Foundation for his outstanding leadership on that specific expedition. So, and he currently lives in Canmore. He's still climbing a bunch. He's getting older at this point. It's not funny, but kind of interesting because he was having a hard time approaching some of the climbs, but then as soon as he was on the rope, it was like second nature. His climbing abilities were pretty outstanding. So it was really cool to see just how decades of experience kind of works in that way.
Also, he was soloing a lot of the stuff that we were climbing.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty insane.
Yeah, the stuff that it took me 3 days to feel comfortable leading, he was soloing.
And Chris, you got the opportunity to see and use, right? His mini gym at home.
Yeah. He has like there's like a local, it's not even a park. It was just like this random, I don't know. I think he's kind of an OG dirtbag as well, because he had this just random spot in the middle of the woods in Canmore where he had set up like a training board for ice climbing that just consisted of some plywood and like a top rope setup on the side of a tree. And on our rest day, he asked me if I wanted to come and do a training session with him. And he and another woman who was also there, like, I mean, I was like blown away by how climbing fit he was. So that was really cool to watch. I mean, they both crushed me. It was pretty humbling, but it was pretty fun.
On your rest day, yeah.
Yeah, that did not help. That did not help me the next couple of days, I don't think, with my climbing abilities. But it was a good opportunity.
Always too much fun with him.
Yeah,
So much fun.
That's
Too
what he
much fun.
says all the time. Too much fun. I wanted to just also introduce and recommend really strongly our guides, Chris Irwin and Ben Paradis. They are from the Rockies Ice and Alpine Specialist Inc. And I don't think I have ever, I mean, I have worked with guides, I have hired guides, but I've never seen somebody so professional and yet so fun. And the big thing I wanted to say about them is that really they were sharing and teaching us highly technical skills. You know, they were really sharing their profession. So it wasn't somebody taking you on a climb and you just don't do a thing and they tell you what to do. They were really involving us in every step of the process. And in some cases, they were soloing things that we were climbing. So they were kind of watching us from the side. I had a wonderful time with them. I think if I go back, or when I go back, I should say, I will definitely consider hiring them for some, bucket list climbs that I want to do that maybe I don't feel quite comfortable yet leading myself, or I don't want to try to figure out all the beta for and so on. And they are an incredible resource. So if you're looking for somebody in the Banff area and you forget this name of these companies, get back to me and I will be happy to recommend them again. Okay, so Chris, do you want to say a few things about where we stayed?
Yeah, so Canmore, it's a pretty cool town. I had never been there before, so it was pretty special to go there for an ice climbing trip for the first time. And yeah, it's super beautiful. It's situated right in the middle of the Canadian Rockies, pretty close to Banff, and it's just got an insane amount of ice climbing in the vicinity around it because of cold temps and just ideal conditions for performing water ice. So yeah, would highly recommend going there, summer or winter, to check it out because it's super beautiful. We had very, very lucky conditions, I would say, in the sense that the ice was very high quality. It was all in for the most part. But then the week that we were there, it was like, sunny for the most part and mid to high teens to like mid 20s, depending on the day. which I've heard we've had trips there in the past that have been quite a bit colder. So really lucked out on the conditions while we were there as well. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that
Oh,
anybody
I
wants
just
to add
wanted
to
to
that.
say one thing because some of these photos, I've taken them from the car driving in or driving out. And I was literally blown away. I was like, I can't believe we're here. And then this waterfall in this picture here, I saw it on the way in. I was kind of cracking my neck and just looking back as we were driving towards Canmore. So it's kind of located somewhere around here. Canmore is right here. Can you guys see my mouse? Okay. And this is Cascade Falls, and Radhika and I got to climb it. And I was just like, I can't believe this. So it's just like, this is how you feel when you arrive. Like, I don't believe I'm here. I don't believe we're going to get to climb this. And we do. And then this picture was taken from my bedroom, which was a suite. And this, again, the lack of having COVID making us have, much more comfortable and much more private accommodation. So we were just so blessed. And I want to thank Becca, and I want to thank Steve and Kyle for making this happen despite all the challenges that we had because of COVID. So our program itinerary description, all of us drove, which was a little bit easier than flying given the COVID scenario. We drove from Seattle or Bellingham to Canmore in 1 day or in 2 days. And then the day we arrived, we had an evening presentation. It was kind of like an introduction to the program and also to the type of climbing we would do, to avalanche conditions, just give us a primer of weather, what to expect through the week. Then the first 2 days, I thought were phenomenal because they were all about improving and honing our climbing technique. There was a few of us that did some mock leading, but for the most part, it was all about just, basically feeling our way onto the ice and learning, in some cases, 101 or 102 from our mentors and guides, a lot of techniques that I think I've sort of been exposed to, but honestly, I really did not know. So we got a lot from the ice cragging. We'll show you some pictures of that. Then day 3, 5, and 6 were multi-pitch climb days where we were leading, we were swapping leads. And in between, day 4 was a rest day. And the last day of climbing was another cragging day. We climbed steeper lines, we climbed some mixed. So some of that was on top rope. A few of us did some leading, but it was just a wonderful day where we all came back together. You'll see in the individual days that we were split up in groups any given day, sometimes in pairs, sometimes in groups of 3. And the last day was a day for us to all come together and have this really fun sort of community day and goodbye day. And then we all drove away on day 8. So typically this is what it is. It's a week with 2 days of travel. And then there are 6 days of climbing with rest day in between. That we were asked to talk about a little bit about gear. So maybe Chris, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure thing. So single ropes were super helpful, like particularly like thin, dry treated single ropes were great. It is the guiding company's policy that you don't have somebody following on a twin rope. If you have like a situation where you have 3 people and you have 2 followers on each end of double ropes, they have to be single rated ropes in order to make that happen. So thin, dry treated single ropes were probably the best things to have. We all brought a lot of double ropes though, which was challenging because we didn't end up using a lot of them. But if you went out with people who were volunteers and not part of the guiding company, you could still use the double ropes in the way that the guiding company didn't want to use them. So so it just sort of depended, but thin single ropes were probably the best. 8 to 10 ice screws per person. I think that we had probably way too many ice screws. You can probably get by with maybe less if you were to coordinate and be all right with people sharing, but 8 to 10 is a good number. Quick draws, anchor materials. Mostly we use quick draws. Alpine draws are helpful for more of the Alpine routes. And then cordelette for, rescue scenarios or rappelling. Yep, lots of lockers and wire gates, belay devices. You need 2 tools. A lot of us had kind of the Alpine style ice tools like the BD Viper or the Petzl, was it the Quarks? But we all learned that for steep water ice, something a little more aggressive might be helpful. So if you're planning on doing a lot of Alpine ice climbing, then the Alpine style tools would be fine. But if you're planning on doing want to get a lot more into like steep water ice climbing, then something like the Nomic or the Fuels from BD would be better. It seemed like the Nomics are like the go-to industry standard based on what people were using around there. But B-thread tools, super helpful. Some tat for that, unless you're going to do 0 threads. Double boots were good. Like I said, we lucked out with the weather, but if it were colder, I think everybody would need to be in double boots. Steel front point crampons for ice climbing, and then lots of gloves. Lots of gloves.
All right. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is walk you through what we have done any given day, and I just have a selection of photos, and then I'm hoping that each person represented from each group, since we were in different groups, can maybe jump in and say a few things. So on the first day, we split up into groups, so 3 and 3. 3 went with Steve and Chris. It was Alex, Andy, and I, and went to a crag called Wedge Smear. And then the other group went to another crag, also in the same area, called King Creek. And then the following day we swapped. So we went to whoever was at Wedge Smear went to Kings Creek and vice versa. So we experienced the same kind of terrain and the same opportunity for testing our technique and testing our tools, and just getting more confident, but on different days. And I will just say that I was very intimidated and very stressed on the first day, and Steve put me at ease. I feel like I really had sort of like an amazing coach walking me through. I didn't always climb with Steve. Sometimes I climbed with Chris, but the point is that I got so much out of its first 2 days that it totally turned around for me, the whole experience. And I know that was probably true for some of the others, but if Alex and Andy want to say something about that first day that maybe stood out for you, that really made a difference for the rest of the week.
Yeah, so what I found amazing was just the fact that they were just focusing purely on technique. So they're walking you through basic triangle. Well, first they just let you go and they'd watch you. No comments. And the next time you went up, they'd give you some comments and some pointers. And they'd kind of bring you down and they work on specific skills. So it was really just skill building. And they did it in such a methodical and slow way. You didn't feel overwhelming. It was like, okay, new thing. By the end of the day, you're like, wow, I just learned a whole ton of things. And it was amazing. Like, first day when I walked up there, I was looking at the stuff and I'm like, oh, this is pretty scary. And by the end of it, we're just cruising up and you're like, oh, this is how you do it. This is wonderful and not intimidating. And it really broke down some of those, those technical hesitancies or fears that we had. So it was incredible, because I think, so much of Mountaineers classes, it's, focused on safety and doing your rope systems, where this was purely, this is how you climb. This is how you go up the ice. This is how you move on the ice. And it was amazing. Like, just having those skill days was incredible. I loved it. Just loved it.
Something you'd like to add, Andy?
Oh, I would just say pace yourself. I went too hard out of the gate and regretted it. It's 6 days of climbing, so you gotta don't go too hard on day one.
Well, and one thing I remember, the ice felt really cold and we were struggling to get good sticks, and so we were whacking a lot. And that was also something that by the second day we all refined a little bit our our swing, and that made it not only more effective, but a lot less tiring. And we were not wearing ourselves out, not 16 swings per stick. Okay, so the other group, what would you like to share about your first day at Kings Creek?
I'll defer to Rodica and Ian on this one to chat about it. It was great.
Pretty much the same thing, right? So using that building blocks, approach while teaching us, the technical skills, and it make me, and I should speak for me. So yeah, it made me feel like, I did grow up throughout the day. So where I started in the morning with, with my position, with my feet, with my, swings, and by the end of the day, being a totally different person, building that confidence. And yeah.
I'd say too, since I went to the first Ice Ambassadors program a few years ago, there was a huge difference now how they approach the training, which everyone's talking about here, which did not happen like that first year. So the first year they just kind of threw us up on the ice and kind of like hacked our way up, and it was more let's go climbing than let's really spend all this time learning specific techniques. So yeah, the way they've learned how to teach us on these programs has evolved quite a bit over the past few years. And also too, a good couple months of training specifically for ice climbing really helps before this kind of course. Like you really want to get an actual ice climbing training program and work through it for at least a couple months.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did not do that. And I think looking back, I kind of wish I did. Just because, I think like if you want to maximize your time and your skill building and your progression, then, working on the strength in advance is probably super beneficial, because then it allows you to kind of like progress at a much faster rate when you're there. So that's kind of almost a little regret I had, was not carving out some more time for training prior to the trip.
Well, you kicked ice regardless. I wanted to say that I really needed the training, and actually wanted to thank Ian for putting together a training plan for us that was sent to us plenty of time. It was just enough weeks to do it. And I follow it pretty rigorously within my limitations, and it made a huge difference. I was tired, as everyone else was tired at the end of the day, but I wasn't spent, and I was always excited to go back the next day. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm just dead. Yeah. So it makes a huge difference. I don't think you can quite wing it with ice as you can do it with other things. And besides, it's a whole full week of it. So
yeah, that's part of the goal of the training, is it's to get you to that last day without being completely worked and useless.
Yeah, it worked for me. Okay, so here basically we're switching days, but it's the same team in the same crowd. I think we can move on here, but there's some really cool pictures, so I have to share. And that was us. The group that was at Wedgesmere was a Kings Creek the second day, and we had a little bit of a talk about avalanche. We actually saw an avalanche that day, so it was kind of a cool side aspect of the day. And besides learning the ice climbing techniques, we also learned a lot about anchoring. We learned a lot from the guys themselves about how they teach and how they do multi-pitch with clients. And those are things that we practice on the ground this first couple of days, and in some cases on other days as well. And I thought that was a really good thing, how it was built into our training for the multi-pitch that were coming later. Okay, so this was the coolest thing ever. So if you have not been to Canmore, you would never even know about this Ghost Wilderness area, but it's a very remote place. It's very difficult to get there. You need not just four-wheel drive, but basically Jeep-like kind of vehicles. And we were so lucky that having a small group and having 2 of such vehicles available, we're able to cram everybody in and go to this place that is like 2.5 hours away in the middle of, we started in the middle of the night, or felt like in the middle of the night. And then we arrived there at sunrise, and we got to climb in this complete wilderness where there were no other people. It was probably one of the most fantastic experiences I ever had. Well, we did 2 different climbs in different groups, so we split up here again, and so each can share a little bit about it. But now we're finally getting into multi-pitching. This was day 3. We all led some or many pitches of ice, and we got to put into practice what we learned the first 2 days, and it worked so well the first 2 days, and by day 3 I was feeling like, oh, there's no way I'm going to feel like I want to lead. And then I did. I felt really great. So I think everybody had this kind of empowering experience for the first 2 days, and it wasn't a better place to put it into practice as in the Ghost. So,
and I'll add to that, just with access to the Ghost. I remember they kept on saying like, oh, you need like a Ghost vehicle, you need like 4-wheel drive, yada yada yada. And I kind of was like, oh, so it's like Washington, where they're like, yeah, you need a high clearance vehicle to get up this forest road or something like that. But like, if you want to go back there in the winter, you need like a lifted 4-wheel drive, like off-roading vehicle with snow tires and all the gadgets and whatnot. It's kind of critical, because yeah, we even got Steve's lifted snow tire 4Runner stuck a few times. It's pretty wild. So that also made it feel pretty special, just getting back there, because like I would, there's no situation in which I think any of us would find ourselves back there without somebody who's been there before. So
yeah, if we had tried with a Subaru, we would have definitely turned around really soon.
yeah.
All right, so I'll just share some pictures of this House of Sky, which is a super classic water ice 3. It's a lot of short little pitches of ice, and then there is what they call rambling in between, which was actually mostly snow walking. It was really cool. It was a great way to actually get started leading for me, because I could start with super short little pitches, and then eventually I wanted to lead them all. I was like, I can do this, I can do it, because it wasn't like an intimidating huge wall of ice. We all had a really great time. This picture is actually mostly Rodika and Ian and Andy, and you can see it from the colorful jackets that they're wearing. And I guess there's a few that I took here. This is me up here, the 3 of us. So I was climbing with Ben and Andy, and was climbing with Jim, who was not in any of these pictures, unfortunately. And then Rodika and Ian were climbing with Chris. The coolest thing about this climb, besides all these cool little pitches of ice, was getting into this big Alpine amphitheater at the top. Theoretically, the climb continues back up here, but we didn't have any time for that, so we had to turn around. But it was a lot of fun and really, really Alpine feel. You guys want to say something else? Ian, you two have already done it, right? Ian and Rodika, no? No, it was
No,
No.
it was the first time for us in
okay.
the Ghost. Yeah. Yeah, we
Okay.
just swap leads all the way, with
Oh yeah,
Chris.
so you and Ian did just swap lead, and Chris was soloing everything.
Yeah, Chris mostly he was soloing, and giving us tips and coaching us, and yeah, it was great learning experience.
Actually,
And
we practice a lot of different skills as well too. Like this left-hand picture over here of Radhika, she's actually doing an arm bar rappel down a lower angle pitch.
and
So-
practice fixed point belays, and
Yeah, I remember also practicing some fixed anchors. Maybe later we'll talk a little bit more about that. The way that they do anchors with 2 screws. We did some belaying from an anchor that was redirected from the ground, because there were sections that were flat where you were walking on flat ice. And so you put the anchor over there, but then you want to kind of redirect to make it more comfortable. I think I did a body belay on a snow section just to practice that. So yeah, there was a lot of kind of, okay, so if you're taking somebody on a climb, and what is it going to look like for somebody that is less experienced? How would you make them feel more secure? That kind of talk throughout the whole day. So we learned a lot. Okay, Chris, this was what, oops. Oop. Okay, too fast. Want to tell about your super cool climb of Beowulf?
Yeah, and Alex, feel free to jump in
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah.
So when they did House of Sky, this House of Sky, it was kind of offered that Alex and I maybe do something else because there was a lot of parties on this House of Sky at that point. So I had seen Beowulf, I think on Mountain Project, and was interested in checking it out. But I think we were also both interested in leading some pitches as well. So we kind of were these first two pitches, which Steve actually climbed in one long pitch, are, you know, WI 4-ish, which neither of us were comfortable with, but we asked him if we could lead the pitches above, and he was totally cool with that. So yeah, we went for Beowulf, which starts out with this really dramatic big waterfall that kind of has two tiers to it, as you can see from the left-hand picture there. And yeah, so Steve led all of that in one pitch, and then after that, it's similar to this House of Sky, where it's kind of rambly, but you're in much more of like a canyon. And yeah, and then Alex and I kind of took some pitches after that, and it was beautiful. It was incredible. Just a really, really cool climb and good experience with multi-pitching and wrapping off the multi-pitches then as well. Alex, what do you have to add?
Thought it was incredible, just for, so the picture on the left doesn't do it justice, but to the top of that second bit from the ground was, I think it was a full 60 meters.
Yeah.
And the second step was what, easily 40-45 meters.
Yeah,
Just
it was long.
pure straight vertical chandelier water ice forward. It was incredible. It was amazing. Like, yeah, I had no idea. Like, yeah, I had the concept of, oh yeah, ice climbing existed, but then to actually be there doing that in this remote place, you're just like blown away. You're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're getting to try all those techniques you learned, you know, the last 2 days at the same time. Your hands are burning, you're going as hard as you can. You're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was incredible. It was just, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, world class. Can't say enough how incredible it was. So fun, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also really cool because we went into the Ghost on a Tuesday. So while I don't think it's like a crazy busy place in general, just because it's really hard to get to, we were the only people back there in total, like in the entire what is it, the North Coast that we were in.
Yeah.
So that was also kind of neat, just thinking like, man, if this place was in Washington, it would be like mobbed with people or something like that. But I don't know. It was we had it to ourselves that day, so it was pretty nice.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to share next this video that Ian took. Actually, technically, Rodika did. She was holding the camera to give you a sense of the kind of conditions we were driving. And these videos are unbelievable, Ian. I'm just, everybody I show this, like, oh my gosh. I'm going to say something about your tool, your camera.
Oh, it's a 360 camera on a stick. Rodika's kind of holding out the window.
But then the stick doesn't show in the video, which is so cool.
For reference, that's a very tame portion of what we were driving on.
Yeah, that doesn't really show the divots we're bouncing up and down on the ruts on the road.
Yeah.
All right. That was incredible. I was in the car actually when this video was being taken. It was pretty darn exciting. And Ian is an incredible driver. Okay, so thank you for driving us over there. All right, then we had a lovely, easy rest day. Some of us did some work, some yoga, some walking, a lot of eating. And then we had a gathering at, Steve has a townhouse and there is a community fire pit, and we had a gathering out there, had pizza and beers because of COVID. But, you know, we're all used to that, and it's kind of fun now. So it was a wonderful way to sort of come together, since we are not being always together, to the climbing days. And then on day 5, Radhika and I were paired together, and I had 2 actually wonderful days with her, climbing some other classic lines. This was Chantilly Falls, which was rated 2 to 3. Honestly, okay, so this is the first pitch. The beginning is really gentle, but then this is the pitch I'm on, which I would say is definitely 3. And then the end of the first pitch is up here, and then you go around this corner, and then you get to this pitch. And depending on how you do it, of course, Radhika picked the steepest possible line existing. See what I was saying? You know, they always pick the hardest way to get somewhere. It's not super long, but I would say it's definitely more than 3 or 3+. So I thought that was a full value day, even if it was just 2 pitches, because it was a super beautiful waterfall, and, you know, not as gentle as it was, you know. I think it was picked as, oh, this is going to be an easy one. Like, not so easy, right, Radhika? What do you think?
Yeah, no, but Ben, right, did acknowledge that, you know, the conditions it was in definitely was pushing it. So definitely
pushing the 3 to 4.
3, definitely 3.
If not more.
Yeah, yeah. There was a little bit of dinner plating there.
Yes.
So I was actually where that picture, the very bright picture. So I think after the next move, I got into some unexpected dinner plating. It was unexpected. Even Ben was like, oops. So I had a oops moment there. But, you know, just staying focused on good kicks, good swings, and stick with it mentally, stick with it. And once I passed that section, it got better. But yeah, it was a great climb for us.
Yes, it was
the right climb for us, I would say. Yeah.
I think everything was in great succession. Like each day we pushed ourselves a little bit more, and our confidence level grew through the whole week. It was a really great progression. And then at the end of the climb, we had some time on the ground and we practiced some anchors. And I don't think we're gonna have time actually today. I'm looking at the clock, but we have videos of these if anybody's interested, how we make this various anchors. This is actually a double V thread, and this is the standard 2-screw anchors that the guides there use, and we've used a lot in the strip. So it's a little different what we learn in Alpine ice in the Mountaineers, and definitely the double V thread. I've never seen that. It's pretty cool. So anyway, this stuff we may not have a chance to talk more in depth, but we have material that we can share in the future. And then that day, Chris and Indy and Jim and Steve went to Grotto Falls.
Andy, do you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, sure. So Grotto Falls was like basically in Canmore. It had like probably a 20-minute approach, but like you started in town and you literally could ice skate to the trailhead or to the start of the climbs. There was one little bit easier climb, which Chris and I both led, and it was awesome. As Grotto Falls, and it was like a perfect confidence booster for me. And so yeah, and then there were also some harder climbs down there, and so that's his and hers, and his is the one that's shown on the left side of the picture here, which Steve Swenson is leading and Chris is belaying on, and then there are a handful of mixed climbs off to the right, and then Chris led a cool WI4 off to the right as well, which was really awesome. And yeah, the mix, there's the climb that Steve is on, it's like discontinuous. And, it's like you can really hone your technique climbing that kind of thing, and learn how to climb that without getting super duper tired. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you?
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done. Okay.
All right, cool. Yeah, I agree with Andy on what he was saying about that climb there. It's pretty cool because it's quite hooked out, as you can see. So there's really no need to actually swing your tools. Just a product of it being a popular climbing area that happens. But because of that, it kind of allowed you to focus on just like being really delicate and not breaking ice. And also just like conserving your energy, because I mean, you can imagine when your feet are where Steve's tool is there, and then you're reaching up and over, it's actually overhanging at that point. So it was a good opportunity to try and be like light and delicate and conserve energy when you can. So it's just a really cool climbing area, and like Andy said, it's super close to, I mean, all of the approaches we did. Like sometimes somebody would say, oh yeah, it's kind of a long approach, and I'd be like, well, how long is it? And they'd be like 2 hours, and I'm like, in Washington you have to approach like 6,000 feet up the side of Mount Baker to get to a single pitch of ice climbing or something like that. So kind of just shows how accessible things are in Canmore for water ice climbing.
It's the place to be. You never want to try to climb in Washington ice anymore after you do it.
Hey, that's not true.
Well, all right, moving on. So this is one that Alex and Ian could talk about for day 5. They climbed it with Chris. Who wants to take this one?
You got it, Ian.
Yeah, fair. I had to unmute myself. Okay. Yeah, this was a fun little one. We actually, the guides had kind of asked us to kind of do planning and stuff. They want to check like the whole, like sequence of things we do, not just let's go out and like climb. So I kind of did a route plan to actually do the whole carryover of this route to actually get to the summit, to the call up here and go to the summit and then walk off. But the guide kind of nixed that idea. We just we're going to go up about probably around here. I think we got, but I think the first pitches were all just straight up ice, and then it was a fun rock mixed pitch at the end. So yeah, fun climb.
Yeah, it's just some nice practicing movement in an alpine environment and lots of little transitions. And you can see the mixed pitch there in the bottom right corner. Yeah, it was lovely. And it was we got to walk around the city dump to start the day, nice and blustery, lots of dust in the face, good smells. No, it was beautiful.
Great. All right, I need to really zip my tongue here because I could talk about this climb for forever. This was definitely my favorite climb of the whole trip. It's a classic Cascade Falls, 4 pitches. Well, depends on how you, it could be 4, it could be 10, it could be 3, I think we did it in 4. We pitched 4 sections of ice, right, Radhika? Was it about right? I think we pitched 4.
So each of us, right, led 2 pitches, and he led the hard. Right. Yeah. So
then it's 5. At
5.
Least 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris ended up leading the steepest, which is going to be in the next slide. But we got started with this little more gentle angle. But once you were there, it wasn't as gentle as it looks. And we had interesting experience, having to link together a long section that was more steep snow, and it had water underneath. That was really tricky and a little stressful, even if it wasn't actually technically true ice. And it was super alpine in that way that you're just like, well, this is the reality, this is how it is. And do you want to say something, Radhika, about how we handle the rope and how, we...
Yeah, rope management. Yeah, rope management was definitely, very important. We learned some lessons on, I can't remember, the second pitch. when we thought that, oh, it's easy climbing and Rodica can come behind with all the rest of the rope coiled on, on her back, and all the coils all over the place. And it turned out that actually it was easy section, but it wasn't as short as we thought.
Yeah.
So it would have been better if we were actually setting up a belay, or just think about to use a different approach for rope management. Yeah, because we did burn a little bit of time there then figuring out how to deal with the rope, but that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a good learning experience. We're trying to sort of simulate, oh, it's going to be easy. When you get there, maybe it's not so easy. But anyway, super incredible alpine feel. I just absolutely love the view. I mean, this is from towards the top of the climb, looking at the mountains, and the highway goes below. And it reminded me of climbing at exit 38, like you see the big highway below, except it was, you're like in the North Cascades at exit 38, that the accessibility of an I-90 climb and the alpine feel being, in the middle of nowhere in the North Cascades. It was just, it was so incredible. And these are some of the steeper pitches. You can see Chris leading the, what I think it was a water ice 4 pitch at that point that we both followed, and Boudica on it. Anyway, we rappelled all the way down. We even had a little bit of a scramble. The walk off was actually a little bit of a rock and snow scramble, and took us a little bit. So it was definitely a good long climb, and it's so easy to get to. Like that is like a 5-minute from the parking lot. I mean, this is actually from the parking lot. Boudica and I again doing the I-5, and you can see how close it is. Maybe 15 minutes. Something like that.
Yeah, it's so popular that when we got in the parking lot in the dark at, I don't know, 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m., we could see headlamps on the route. So another party of 2 was already halfway up on the route, and they were rappelling when we started. And it's positioned in very high AVI danger terrain. So you can see that ball at the top. So it's not in or fully accessible because of the AVI danger all the time. So you really need a perfect window for it, and perfect snowpack up high because there are fatalities over the years. So it's well known for all kinds of accidents because of avalanche, and not only.
We were lucky that way too, because we had this perfect week of no precipitation, or almost no precipitation, and but it was still cold enough, and so we kind of lucked out also in this opportunity to climb some stuff that they would have considered too dangerous for AVI conditions with different kind of weather. So everything just lined up so well for us. Okay, I don't know who wants to speak about Louise Falls, another super classic. Chris or Andrew or both?
Yeah, I guess I could just start on this. Me, Steve, and Andy went for Louise Falls on day 6. It's like a really cool classic climb, but somehow again we lucked out. There was nobody else up there that day, which is pretty wild. But you can see the bottom right picture there is Lake Louise, and there's like a chateau at the very end of it. So it's kind of funny, like parking in this parking lot for the chateau in the dark, walking through the climb, and then when we returned, it was just like total chaos with like people, tourists having a good time. But it was a beautiful day. The first pitch you can see on the left-hand photo there is we actually climbed the very right side of that flow over near the rock there, because there's a bolted anchor on top of that. And then the second pitch kind of takes you up that rambly bit to the base of that pillar, and we belayed from the left side of that pillar in the cave. Right there. And then Steve climbed the last, and there's a photo of that right there. Yep. And then Steve climbed the steepest pitch. So Andy took the first one, I took the second one, and then Steve finished off, because that last pitch was, I don't know, 4+, 5-, somewhere in there, and pretty chandeliered. So yeah, he climbed that one. And it was cool because the day prior, Andy and I kind of learned some techniques for energy management and like pump management And I felt like I was actually able to use those techniques on that upper pitch of the climb and, you know, shake out and do all this other stuff to make sure that you're not pumping out too hard. But yeah, it was a super fun climb and really unique opportunity to be able to do it with nobody else on it in like perfect conditions. So yeah, Andy, sorry, I might have gone a little too much there. Did you have anything
No,
to add?
that was fine. Yeah, it was really, really fun. It was the coldest day that we had. And in the photo with Steve Sisu Shush, he climbs through this hole. You guys can't see my mouse, but like you can see him. There's like a hole in the ice, and he climbs through the hole and then out onto the face. It's really cool. And yeah, it was just really nice because it was like a team effort, and so everybody got to lead something, and so it felt really good. It was just a phenomenal climb.
Great. And then that same day, Ian and Alex climbed Guinness Gully with Ben. You guys want to say a little bit about it? And there is a video for this, so don't say anything about the video yet.
This one was amazing also, and like Andy said, it was the colder day when we were driving there. I think at one point we saw -8 or -10 Fahrenheit, and my eyes were freaking out because I, you know, as the week's been going on, I've been putting less and less in my pack. I'm like, oh, the temperature will be warmer, I'll be fine, and I'm getting all nervous. I think it was 10 degrees that day when we were climbing, but it was phenomenal. I mean, Ben was an amazing dude, amazing guide. You can see these massive pitches of ice were going up and just having fun. And the Abbey danger was high in this area, but he knew through the secret guide network that had been bombed recently. So it was safe enough for us to go out there that day, which was awesome. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
So there is a video that Ian took with his 360 camera, and I'm actually going to play it from media player instead of PowerPoint because the sound is better and you want to hear the sound for this one. So I'm going to stop
Did you
this
have to bleep
share.
anything out of that?
I didn't beep anything. I was told that it's okay in this audience. Okay, so I'm gonna go fetch that file. Okay, it comes pretty quick, so just listen up and watch what happens.
Oh, fuck! Look. Oh, shit. It's okay. Second. Hold on a second. Oh, that's unfortunate. God damn it. God damn it. Is it your rope? It's like I gotta cut that one. I just cut it, not tell him? Actually, he was telling a story about that happening to another person with one of the ropes. But he said once they cleaned up the
All right.
Alex, I never heard the part where you said, should I cut it and not tell him?
In all fairness, I got Andy a nice shiny new rope. And after inspecting it, it only cut one of the core strands out of, I think, 7 or 8. So it was not as bad as it looked, but it was made me a little alarmed at the time. Yeah.
I feel so bad about laughing about it, but as you can see, it's really hard not to.
Kind of one of those things that when you're ice climbing and you're following, like you play it through your head about 1,000,000 times, like what it would look like to hit the rope with your tool. And then like seeing that video, I'm like, oh, it kind of plays exactly how I was imagining. It just like goes straight through. And it's super lucky that that didn't like have any more damage to the rope, that it compromised it in that moment. But yeah, that video kind of like plays on everybody's worst nightmares a little bit.
And on really vertical ice like that, you know, it's not that, you know, you want to go pretty much right above your head. So it's not that outlandish that would happen.
Alex called me and I was sleeping after we climbed Louise Falls. I took a nap in the afternoon, and he was like, "Dude, I cut your rope," and I was like, "No, you didn't." It's like, "No, I cut your rope," and I was like, "Don't mess with me. That's not funny."
And this is a nice, brand new, skinny single rope, just like beautiful rope. It was, yeah, heart-wrenching to have to cut
Only
it.
lost a few feet.
Yeah, that was good.
And that video is amazing, Ian. I love your videos, everything you do, but that just like, it was just the perfect moment.
I'm just glad that he's okay.
Yay.
We all
It was, what was super cool about climbing in groups of 3 with ice is, unlike rock climbing where you have to, pretty much one after the other, follow the same line. With ice, we were able to actually go side by side the whole time.
Mhm.
We're, hanging out, climbing with each other and just pacing, go the same speed so you don't knock anything on each other or have sharp stuff above each other. But it was really cool. It was really fun. Whereas in rock climbing, it's kind of a drag to climb in 3s, and ice, it was really nice, really pleasant.
Yeah, I felt the same. Also, Radik and I were able to climb slightly different lines, but more or less at the same time, and took pictures of each other and all that. That's really cool. Okay, so we saw this. Just went too fast. So the last day, we all went cragging in the same place called Hefner Creek. And this is just a collection of all the amazing photos that everybody took. You can see we have some steeper lines. We had some mixed. We just kind of had a great fun day just to kind of put it all together. I don't know if people want to say a few more things, but you can see the lines are steep. Everybody got to climb some water ice 4. Some of us even led water ice 4. Tried some mix. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting day without, we had to get up early. That was the only stressful part, but then we just got to play and just hang out with each other all day. Else anybody want to add? Here is some more photos of the mixed stuff. This was really cool with Ian resting against the ice. Remember that, Ian?
Yeah. Actually that it looks awkward right there, but you just kind of lean your back against the ice pillar and take a rest for as long as you want. And when you're ready, you just pop back out on the face.
It was pretty, go ahead, sorry.
No, I just looking at these 2 pictures, and for a moment I thought it was the same photo, that there's a continuity here, but they're not. Just the way I put them together, it looks like that. So this is Radik and this is I, on very different spots.
Yeah, something that I found out that was pretty cool. There was a couple other groups up there, and one of them, one guy was quite skilled, and he was leading some like M8 stuff, and it was really cool to watch him lead some really hard mixed routes. But I learned later that this is one of the areas that, if you've seen the movie The Alpinist, Marc-Andre Leclerc does some of his solos in the movie. So we were able to like see the route that they had that shows in the video or in the movie of him soloing, and it just put in perspective for me just like how wild it is that he climbed some of this stuff without a rope, because it's just like, I don't know, the video doesn't really do it justice. And then you see it, and then you see somebody climb it, normally with a rope, and you're just like, that is just wild that somebody would do that without a rope. So it was kind of a cool experience to see that.
It was super cool you can kind of see it in the middle right picture, but it's been used so much that over time people's picks have made actual grooves, and like it almost looks like manufactured pick placements in the limestone, and it was just so cool. And you had to use mono points basically to get up it, but it's kind of like going to a climbing gym, but it was all outside and just really delicate and totally different experience.
Yeah, Emma, I don't know if you can show it with your mouse, but
Some of the holes.
yeah, so all those little holes, those are basically like single or dual like crampon point holes. You can just because people just wear it out and it's like limestone or something. So these holds just keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, limestone is actually quite a bit softer than the rocks we used to climb here in Washington, and it would just excavate basically with each of these picks, you know, hooking on it or crampons in it, and I'm pretty sure I'm completely inside of some of those holes. I would not be standing there. There's no way. I mean, I was on top rope and I was getting a lot of help, but still. Yeah, super fun. I never thought I would enjoy mix, and I actually really did that day. So that was a wonderful way of ending the week. Well, I was hoping that we could each say a few words about what we got out of this trip. You know, why was this a meaningful and worthwhile experience? And I'll get it started. I think I had a lot of conversation with people, and maybe one of this conversation is what had Carl hear about the trip and asked me if he wanted to talk about it. But I think I describe it, for me, this was truly transformative. I think I shared this with a few of you, but I had a friend dying in the mountains in a trip I was on. It was actually a backpacking trip of all things, but after that experience in 2019, my risk tolerance was really gone down, my mojo for climbing and really was gone. And then COVID hit, and just like, I just tried to avoid things that were, that in my mind had higher risk. And I started branching out and doing other activities in the mountaineers and just kind of like wondering, you know, where is my climbing gonna go? And I was slowly kind of dipping my feet back into some easy climbing, but I wasn't really interested in leading. And then a former ambassador, I should say we're all ambassadors now. So an ambassador from a previous trip, a female friend, encouraged me to apply. And I thought about it a lot. And then I thought, well, this is the time. If I don't do it now, I may never do it. And I was shocked that I was chosen to go, and really grateful. But I still approached the trip with a lot of trepidation, and I was unsure whether I would feel comfortable leading. And the whole thing seemed like if I can't lead, then I just failed at this thing. And the first 2 days were so amazing with Steve coaching me and giving me so many useful tips about technique, that by the third day, I really felt I wanted to do it. I was in the right place with my head. And we both mentioned, Agosta and I, like how we felt there was such a great progression to the week, and how really everybody progressed at their own pace. And yet everybody got to a point of feeling a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident. And that, I haven't shared this with you guys because I haven't seen you, but it really changed my perspective on climbing altogether. And I went to Hialeah and I climbed the following month. I went to Red Rocks and Joshua Tree and I climbed. And I got to the point that I was okay leading again, even on rocks. So it just totally turned around my whole approach to climbing. And I couldn't be more grateful for this experience, and also for having shared with all of you. I think I felt so encouraged and supported by everyone in the team, and we were really a close-knit group, and it was just fantastic. So anybody's on the fence about applying, thinking, oh, maybe this is too hard for me, I shouldn't, please talk to me. Really, you should, whether it's rock or ice or both, you know, at some point. So that was just what I wanted to say, because it truly changed my life.
Cool. I guess thanks, Emma. That I don't know how I'll beat that, but I'll say a few words. I was introduced to the idea of the Alpine ambassadors during one of our rock rescue trips in the fall, and looked into it, and I was like, this seems just like almost too good to be true, in a sense, when you're reading it on paper, that like this trip is, you just have to get yourself there and then buy food, and then like everything else is taken care of. But it really is the case that that's what's going on. And yeah, I really appreciate being informed about this trip and then going. And yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. I think some of my biggest takeaways are mostly like actually more of the technical skills that were learned from an aspect of climbing technique. I think we focused really hard on the first 2 days in learning some really solid technique. And I think during those first 2 days, and people who were with me can attest, that I was pretty darn eager to just get on with it and start doing other things. But definitely appreciate the attention to detail and learning all those technique skills, so that, you know, because when you're climbing something that feels quite easy and you're having to maintain that technique, it feels like, okay, I don't need to do this. What am I doing up here? But then once you get onto harder things, whatever that may be for you, it helps to have run through that repetition so that you can kind of like adhere to those basics again, and which, yeah, just really helps you when you get on some harder terrain as well. So yeah, I really appreciate the emphasis on technique throughout the whole week, especially the first few days. So yeah, that was my big takeaway.
Yeah, on my end, it's hard to beat Emma's, because, you know, it definitely, it did help me to, I did grow up throughout the program. Literally, I felt like I did grow up a lot throughout the program. So I was introduced to it, you know, or the program was introduced to me years ago, and I was hesitant. I was encouraged to apply. I was hesitant to apply. I thought I wasn't ready, and avoiding to do the thing I thought I couldn't do. But you know, I'm so thankful I was selected and I got the opportunity to do it. And I'm also thankful for the approach that was used to teach us the building blocks approach, building, you know, that confidence that is fully dependent on the technical, the technique that you have to dial in, and then to be able to free up your head for the sharp end and take it, you know, to the next level to actually get on the sharp end. The progression was fantastic, and it was the right approach. And yeah, I didn't, you know, I didn't think that, you know, I was expecting, right? I was hoping that that's what I'm going to get out of it, to be able to lead, sustain, you know, a WI3, not just a move here and there, or not just some, you know, mellow WI2. And yeah, I cannot recommend enough. So if you have the opportunity to take time off, and please apply and get into this program. And the same for the rock program, because it's pretty much the same approach, but one rock, my understanding is, I didn't take that one. So yes, I highly recommend this program.
Well, I'll throw in my 2 cents, but everybody's covered it so well already. I don't have a whole lot to add, but yeah, these trips are next level compared to the regular, you know, mountaineers classes you might be used to. So it's definitely worth it.
I will definitely second that. And you just think about it, you had a full week of climbing with world-class guides and getting taught and climbing amazing climbs every day. Like, there's no way that I would have done that on my own or sought out a guide for 6 days in this amazing location. That would have been way too expensive, way too just beyond what I would consider something I would do. And it was absolutely incredible. And just the level of, you know, the giving and the teaching and just how much support and openness there was. It was, yeah, trip of a lifetime. Absolutely incredible.
So building on that, I would say that I came back really invigorated to continue volunteering, and then also to think about leading climbs that were like, you know, a little bit more challenging and involved some of the skills that I had learned. So it was, I felt like it opened doors for me as a leader. And yeah, it was really cool. The other thing that I would say, my takeaways were like the importance of like having goals in my case, it was like just going on the trip, training for those goals, and working towards them, and then showing up, and then like dealing with the reality of like what's it like to be there doing it. So I found that really important and rewarding.
Wow, that was wonderful. I'm really impressed how we were able to sort of complement each other and really capture, how significant this experience was for all of us. Okay, so we wanted to kind of close with one more encouragement to consider applying for one of these programs, and I wanted to make sure everybody knows that the Squamish Rock Ambassador Gateway Trips is happening this July. The dates are July 9 to 16th, and the application is live now. I'm going to put a link in the chat, and it's due on May 9th. So if you've been on the fence, please do it. Don't hesitate. I think the language on the website may say something about leading trad 5.8. That is not necessarily the case, just like water ice 3 sustain was not the case for us to begin with, or for some of us at least. You just apply, you say what you want to get out of it, and kind of show what you've done for the mountaineers and your commitments to follow up on this. And that may count way more than your ability in leading trad at a certain level. At the very least, put yourself in the hat and see what happens. Also, I wanted to remind you, if you're interested in the ice trip, that usually the applications come out in the fall. I think we submitted in October and were selected by mid-November. Also, there are going to be hopefully 2 Ice Ambassador hosted trips next year. One in Ureta will be all top rope, and one in Bozeman. I hope to be the one leading, possibly with Brian, the Bozeman trip. In the Bozeman trip, there is definitely some opportunity to learn to lead on ice. Just getting started. Well, usually the Urea is a complete introduction to water ice. I can't promise both trips are going to happen. We'll see what happens, but there is an intention. I've spoken to Misha, who usually has led the Urea trip, and we both have this intention. So we'll see if we both get funded and we can make this happen. So those would be the trips for people that really love the idea of learning how to climb ice, but they really haven't had any water ice experience, or very little water ice experience, and maybe they don't feel quite ready for Canmore. But some of you may have had very little and still feel ready to apply for Canmore, so go ahead with that. So anyway, there is a wide range of opportunity, and I really can't emphasize enough how we really want this program to continue. We want the mountaineers to continue to invest in us. There is not a whole lot of opportunity to go beyond intermediate in the mountaineers. This is the opportunity. It's, as I think we convinced you, it was amazing. Okay, I was gonna put the link. I'm gonna stop this share, and I'm gonna put the link in the chat if I can find it again. Anybody has any closing words, or I guess we are open for questions, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you, Emma and Chris and Alex and Andy and Rodika and Ian, for sharing your experience. It's an amazing story, and it's what an amazing opportunity too, to be able to do that. Like you said, you just get yourself there and they pretty much take care of it. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can just put a note in the chat saying that you have a question or a comment, and then I'll call on you and you can ask it to the hosts directly. So Anne, would you like to ask your question about previous experience?
Oh, yeah, sure. Apologies. Thanks so much for all the speakers. Really appreciate all the detail that you went into about your Canmore trip. And I just was curious, and apologies if I missed it in the beginning, did you have previous waterfall ice experience, or how much, and Or, you know, kind of what was your background prior to your Canmore trip with ice?
Well, this is probably different for all of us. I can quickly tell you mine. So I had applied for Canmore years ago, did not get in because I was probably not ready, or because there were most likely more qualified people. But that same year, what they did, they put together an ambassador hosted trip to Bozeman. And that was not my first water ice experience. I've done a couple of seasons of just stop roping in URA, but it was the first time I did any leading on ice. And it was an ambassador hosted trip. So it was just an introduction to leading ice. And so I was clearly not ready for doing this in Canmore because you were expected to already have led ice, water ice. But the Bozeman trip allowed me to get into it. And then I did a couple more trips where I did. So I had a very limited water ice leading, but I had maybe 3 or 4 seasons worth of following on ice, on water ice. This is all water ice, not Alpine I'm talking about. I think it was a little different for different people in the group. So maybe the other one is going to jump in where they were at before Canmore.
Yeah, I will jump in. So before Canmore, I was following WI4 plus, and led only WI2 twice, and a very, very short pitch of well, it had one move maybe, WI3. And other than that, just, Alpine ice, like, observation rock in actual, ice conditions, North Ridge of Baker, that was it. So yeah, and top roping up to WI4, WI5. But yeah, leading wise, I would say close to zero water ice.
Anyone else want to?
I would say some experience, not much.
Right there with you. I think we'd gone, in the intermediate stuff up to Lillooet a couple times, but I was by no means confident at all. And the trip definitely changed that.
And I'd say I started ice climbing when I was living on the East Coast. So primarily I was water ice climbing because there's not a lot of alpine ice up there. Well, there is, but yeah, anyways. And I'd say I have led a fair few things, but I probably started leading. Actually, I definitely started leading like before I should have, in all honesty. So yeah, this trip also helped me kind of like reel it in and be like, oh yeah, there were times in the past where I've probably been kind of out of control ice climbing, and that's not cool. And so it was helpful actually to kind of like, yeah, put it into perspective for me. Just yeah, how serious leading ice is, but yeah. But anyways.
Great. It sounds like if folks have gone through, the intermediate ice field trips and maybe done a few low-level ice climbs here, that you can already consider getting involved in this program and really moving your skills upwards from there. So if anyone else has a question, do put it in the chat. I have a question too, actually. So I have limited ice experience, but it's just very tiring to lift those tools above your head and swing them and so on. And you made comments, many of you, about how you got tips on how to better manage energy and better manage, not pumping out, so to speak, so that you would have the energy to climb all day and multiple days in a row and so on. So what are some of those tips for those of us who like swing an axe for 20 minutes and are done? So how do we better manage energy and blood flow and everything?
Well, it's going to start with training, and it's usually a ice climbing specific training you want to do. Like I mentioned, we usually do it for a couple months before we go on one of these big trips, and it's usually working your calves and your grip strength and forearm strength for the most part. Because and you want to do your training. Usually we use either our real ice tools and we'll just hang them on some gymnastic rings, hanging from the rafters in the house here, just doing pull-ups. Or if we went to the gym, we would use some of the gym equipment and hang our ice tools on at the gym and do our pull-ups and exercises like that, because you're practicing with the actual tools you're using, and we're doing our workouts wearing our gloves. So you're going to be working your grip strength similar to when you're actually on the ice. You just do those workouts for that couple months, and just slowly build up your grip strength. So it's going to be different than just going to the climbing gym and climbing on holds. And then you're also working your calf strength, because this ice climbing is a calf burner. So we do weighted calf raises in between our sets of doing all of our pull-ups and hanging on the ice tools. And then some of the other techniques, some of these everybody else can throw in here, but you want it, if you over grip your tools and hold on to them too tight, you're going to pump out, you're going to lose your sensation in your hands. So you just have ways of having a loose grip, flicking the tools efficiently, keeping your fingers loose, and kind of as you're holding, you don't over grip your tools. That's a big thing. So.
And keep your arms right. Don't hang on your tools like this with arms bended. Keep your arm fully extended. Rest. Shake your arm that is not on the tool, right? You have one arm on the tool, straight arm, and while you are resting there, shake the other one.
Yeah, I think to add to that, Rodika, Steve kind of mentioned some even more specific kind of techniques with what you were saying there, Rodika, in that especially when you're leading, because if you're top roping, right, you get tired, well, I'll just keep on climbing and it's fine, and maybe I'll just climb through it and it'll all be good. But when you're leading, you really want to make sure that you're not getting to 100% pump where you're gonna fall off. So when you feel yourself getting to 80% pump, he put it in percentages, and you kind of have to know your body to know what that feels like. You kind of want to stop there, find the best feet possible where they're level, and then do that technique that Rodika was talking about, where you get a tool in as extended as possible. And then you go back and forth, but from hanging on one arm and shaking out the other one, and then swapping. And he actually said, and I found this to be super helpful, start by counting down from 5 while you're doing that. And then go to 10 seconds and keep on until you can work back into a position of being rested, basically. And you'd think well, I mean, you get to a certain point where you're just way too pumped and that's not going to help. But there was a couple times where I felt like I was way too pumped, and I did that technique, and you can actually regain your strength again and your composure as well. So yeah, just shaking out a lot and taking your time.
Finally, I would add that when you're hanging on that one tool above your head, you want to actually hang on the bottom part of your hand. And what the expression they used was float your thumb. So you're not actually gripping that tool. You're not squeezing that upper tool. You're actually hanging from it with only a more modest amount of strength required to do that.
Mhm.
One more thing I would add. So if you are on a route which is pretty well traveled, and there are some, already obvious, holes here and there, don't waste energy, on swings. If you already have some holes, you can just hook your tool and hang on it, or, make your next move, but don't waste your energy, spend on extra swings to get the perfect placement for your tool. Leverage the features that exist in ice.
Okay. Lots of great tips. Thank you, everybody. I don't see any more questions coming through. So I think we'll start to wind it down, but I want to thank you all again. I hope this was, I'm sure it was useful for those, and it'll become a useful resource too for others looking into this program in the future. So as I said, we have at least one more talk coming in May, probably going to be May 18th. Yeah, I thank everyone for joining, and thanks again to Emma for driving this, but all of the presenters who came out to talk to us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma and Chris, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Excuse me.
everyone. Was so good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Oh,
this was great.
Excuse me, because I do have a question and I put it in the chat. So one of it was either, I don't remember, Rodrika or Emma said that someone died on a backpacking trip.
Oh,
And how did that happen?
I really don't wish to talk about it. I just
Oh, okay.
was sharing it as my sort of where I was coming from in terms of my risk tolerance. It was just a slip in a random dangerous place, so it can happen. But I don't still don't like to talk about
Okay,
the actual
sorry.
details of the incident, but more like, you know, we all know people that die in the mountains, and that affects the way we think and the way we approach risk. And sometimes it takes a long time to get over it and be willing to take risks again. But we love what we do, and many of us want to get back and do it. So, but yeah, it was really sad.
Thank you, Emma.